Well, the timeline of the evolution of Henry Gale / Benjamin Linus is, I think it's hard to remember exactly, but I think the original call came. It was an offer. I didn't audition for the part, which is unusual for me. I'm used to having to jump through hoops of fire to get a part. It was offered to me that I would come to Hawaii and play 3 episodes, and then by the time I flew, 3 had turned to 6. So the role had grown in someone's mind, at least, but I still packed for a short stay. When I got there and we began filming, as we went along, they just wouldn't let me go home. And 6 became 7, 8, 9, 10, and then that was the whole latter half of that second season. And I think we thought, by the time we wrapped that season, that I had become a significant enough character that they might ask me to be a regular, which they did. I think Benjamin Linus is somewhere in the middle of the scale of good and evil, and I don't know what his self-image is. I don't think he thinks about good and evil. I think he's obsessed. I think he has a mission or an agenda that trumps most other considerations. It leads him to be ruthless, certainly, manipulative, for sure. But I don't know that he's a bad guy. I mean, I tend to walk around and think as well of him as I can. And I think it's perfectly possible that at the end of the series, we will find him to be heroic. We might just as easily find him to be something awful. But the jury's out, and I don't know. In a way, it's not any of my business. Sort of. My business is just to play the scenes straight. This is a character that plays best in a neutral or cool mode, I think. That way he's a sort of tabula rasa, and the audience can project things onto him, their own fears or hopes or whatever. We are given complete scripts when we film, so I know all the material before it airs. What I don't know is how it's cut, and sometimes how it's contextualized. Sometimes I'm more surprised by what's been left out than something that was put in. I mean, the big surprises to me come when I read the script, and we get them very shortly before we film them. Maybe 2 days before you go in front of the camera, you'll get a chance to look at the script. So when things come up like me strangling John Locke, that when I read that, I thought, you got to be kidding me. We're going to do that? And sometimes you read things and you think, how can we possibly do it technically? Sometimes you read, you think, how are they going to shoot that? Stuff like that. But they absolutely, sky's the limit as far as the writers are concerned. They feel like if we can think it, it can be filmed somehow, and they'll find a way out there in Hawaii. The writers and producers are not softies, and so they have manipulated the audience very well over the course of 5 years, and so you'd never know what they have up their sleeve. To present Ben in some softer light may be just them luring the audience into some trap, that they'll spring on them and everybody will scream and realize that he's a mega villain or something. I don't know. They're wily fellows, Carlton and Damon. I think they're so smart and such long-range plotters that they probably knew where they were going. They needed to put a face on the antagonism of the show. It couldn't any longer be satisfying to have it just be a mysterious island. That they needed a face and a voice. And I think had I not worked out in the part, they'd have found some way to eliminate me and bring in someone to serve a similar purpose. But luckily, I think I was a reasonable fit for the role. My hope is that the ending of the show is a big point of view reveal, or a big shift of context. One of those things where you go, oh my God, that was what it was all this time? Something that makes you realize that you've been misunderstanding what you've been looking at for 6 years. And that makes you go back and want to look at it all over again, knowing what you now know. I mean, I hope it's something big that has to do with the mechanics of the telling of this story, and not just sort of little piecemeal solutions to mysteries. I have a feeling that the writers who are experienced, science fiction and comic book men, I think they're good plotters, and I think they're used to telling stories that have stories within stories. And so I think somehow the focus opens out somehow at the end of this series. It would behoove me to start planning my post-Lost life, I think. I don't really have a plan. I mean, I always have just sort of understood that I was eventually going to go back on the stage somewhere, because that's just what I've always done. But there will be other kinds of projects around too. Possibly television. It would be nice to do a movie someday, some nice part in a movie. And I will of course be looking to shift gears. I would like to play something completely different for a while at least, because Benjamin Linus is a great character. He's gotten to be kind of a little bit iconic, and it will be something that I have to leave behind. Or people will say, well, I don't believe that. That's still that scary guy from Lost. I want to be able to make a change.